गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. How this bliss is, here it says, how the bliss is ever present even in miserable experience. The bliss that is our nature is never denied, means it is never absent. Only thing is it just gets covered up, just like in eclipse, sun is covered up. Because you can't see the sun doesn't mean that the sun is not there. If the clouds are covering the sun doesn't mean that the sun is not there. It is there. Similarly, even when we are going through pain and misery, it does not mean that the bliss that is our nature is absent. It is ever present. And this is said in the next OV. दिहा चिया दुपारी चांदू जैसा अंबरी ते असणे चांदाची वरी जाणावे की. The ever existent moon may not be perceptible during noon hours of the day, however, its presence is known to the moon herself. In the daytime, we are not able to see the moon because of the brightness of the sun. The brightness of the sun is more than the brightness of the moon because the moon's brightness is a borrowed brightness, whereas sun's brightness is its own. But because we can't see the moon, does it mean that the moon is absent? No, it is still there. Exactly the same way. During the day at high noon, the moon cannot be seen, but that does not mean the moon is not existing. It is ever present, and the moon herself knows her own presence even at that time. In the same way, the presence of objects of enjoyment, in the presence of objects of enjoyment which gives us Vishayananda, is in essence Atmananda, the bliss alone. So, in the presence of objects of enjoyment, why do we go after the objects of the world, experiences of the world? Because we feel that the source of happiness is the objects, that the happiness is inherent in the object. It is wrong conclusion. Then where is the happiness? Happiness is the nature of the self. Then what happens when we pursue an object or an experience? The moment we become one with that particular object, the desire for that object, desire for that experience comes about. Where the desire is for that particular thing has vanished, there itself, there and then, that very moment, the bliss which is our inherent nature, that is able to express forth. Just as sun is covered by the clouds, the bliss of the self is covered by the desires. When the desire goes away, suppose I am thirsty, I think we took this example somewhere. If I am thirsty, I have a desire for water. The moment I take the water, the desire for water goes away. Water is object. And the moment desire vanishes, then why that satisfaction? That satisfaction is of the self. It is not from the water. But unintelligently, out of ignorance, out of delusion, we appropriate the joy, the bliss on the water, on the object of the world. So, so understand this, that you self, that I am, this self is complete. There is nothing lacking in it. Not only it is ever existing and all knowing, but it is also always blissful. Now, if you know that it is you by nature are always blissful, then will you seek happiness from objects of the world? Will you seek happiness from possessions of various things? Will you seek happiness from relationships? Will you seek happiness from identifying with the body, with the memories? No. Then why are we continuing doing that? Because this point has not clicked inside us. So think about it. Only once you have to sit, or even while listening right now, allow this conviction to take place at some deep level, and automatically once you are convinced of it, intellect is convinced of it, then directly proportional to it the actions will come about. Our thoughts and actions are directly proportional to the convictions. So why we are having an distorted understanding, that we understand but it's not clicking? Because of lack of conviction. There are three types of ananda, of which Vishayananda is one. Refer Panchadashi chapter 11, where the enjoyer comes in contact with the object of enjoyment through the senses and imagines that it is the object that is giving him joy. This is the Vishayananda, where the object is separate to the person, is separate to the subject, and the subject thinks, the person thinks that the joy is in the object that he is perceiving, and when that feeling comes about, then you want to possess that object, you want to be one with that object, you get identified with that object, you desire that object. In reality, the possession of the object quietens the agitations in our mind, and the essential blissful nature that we are manifests itself to oneself. This is exactly what I said before. I didn't know what was coming afterwards, but that's the natural consequence of thoughts. So when you become one with the object, the desire for it subsides. Where the desire subsides, there the bliss which is inherent, that is your essence, that is your nature, that is the nature of the Atma. It shines. When the clouds go away, the sun shines brightly. You didn't create sunlight. Sunlight was already present. So we don't create bliss. Our misunderstanding that the bliss is in the object, this has to be corrected. We appropriate bliss to the object out of our misunderstanding, out of ignorance that we are of the nature of bliss. We sing bhajans, मैं तो सच्चिदानंद रूप हूँ, but we have never imbibed it. What is understood is Vishayananda by the ignorant man is recognized as Brahmananda by the wise man. Therefore, the ignorant man is attached to the objects of enjoyment, whereas the wise man is not. So the experience is the same, but the disposition is different. A wise man recognizes that the bliss that he is experiencing is of the self. The ignorant man is deluded as regards the bliss, because he feels the bliss is in the object, and thus he continues to go from one desire to the other desire, whereas the wise man, he is ever the same, whether the object is there or not there, whether the experience is there or not there, whether the 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 hunger is, the food is there or not there. He is ever content. He is ever blissful. He doesn't wait to be happy that once I get that, then I will be happy. No. In spite of everything, he is happy. This ever existing, ever present bliss is our own essential nature. If it is ever present, there is no need to create it. If bliss is our present, is our essential nature, then there is no need to create it. Then why we are seeking it? I want to be happy. And this is what we do. We go to sleep. Why? We want to be blissfully sleeping. Why? Because enough of world today, for today. We want to travel. Why? Because when I go there, then I will enjoy. When I eat that golgappe, then I will enjoy. When I eat that rasmalai, then I will enjoy. Keep delaying the bliss. The search for happiness is the most miserable search because it seeks to create an imagined utopia of happiness, whereas when the search and the efforts are dropped, then the happiness manifests itself in its ever existing presence. It is present even in the miserable experience. We have to drop the search and we have to stop putting efforts. Try. Try giving up efforts. And because actually, if you do that, if you stop searching, today we talked in the meditation that we have to go beyond the bondage and liberation. What is our idea? That if I study this, then I will be closer to realization. When I study Upanishads, I will be closer to realization. When I do meditation, I will be one with myself. When I think of Lord, I will be one with the Lord. All we are doing is delaying our happiness. Because what is the premise? Premise is when I think of Lord, then I will be one with Lord. When will that day come? Now? Tomorrow? 1 year? Or with the last breath? Or maybe not, maybe next life. Don't delay. That when I eat, when I travel, when I go to India, when I get out of this lockdown, we are just delaying our joy, our bliss. We are of the nature of bliss. Let the events happen or not happen, who cares? Let the objects come or not come, who cares? Play the game of life. If you play the game of life with this premise that I am of the nature of bliss, then life will be a leela. Our life is a struggle. For an ignorant man, life is a struggle. Continuously moving from misery to happiness or joy, without recognizing that he is of the nature of bliss. So get out of this. Wherever there is duality, understand we are still stuck in the mind. If we are equanimous towards the mind, samatvam yoga uchyate, it is the mind which has got two polarities, liberation and bondage. Happiness, no happiness. Whatever type of desire is there, it is in the mind. And who are you? The one who is witnessing that the desire is appearing in the mind and then going away. This has to be thought out, contemplated, reflected, meditated upon. Thus, then the happiness manifests itself in its ever existing presence. It is present even in the miserable experience. Bliss is ever present even in the miserable experience. Without the sunlight, there is no day nor there is any night. The cause of both is the sun. But sun is independent of the day and independent of the night. So all opposites, all objectivity is in the mind. And you are other than the objectivity, you are other than the duality, you are other than the mind. Only then you can recognize that you are pervading the mind also. And how will you know it? Without a thought. This is the type of language that the scriptures use. The moon may not be perceived by others during the day, but the moon is not concerned. It stays in its own glorious existence. So just as moon is not seen during the day, similarly, the bliss is not experienced by the ignorant one. Does it mean bliss is absent? No. Just as moon is self-existing, it doesn't need validation, it doesn't need to be recognized, it doesn't need to be validated, it doesn't need to be perceived. It is not that when we say that moon is, then moon is. No, moon is existing whether we see it or we don't see it. Similarly, this bliss, which is the nature of the self, it is ever present because the self is ever present. Whether mind is able to perceive it or not, is able to suss it out or not, mind, aprapya manasa saha, mind can never come to know it. Only when the mind becomes quiet, free of all ripples of thoughts, that's when the bliss shines forth. And this happens whenever our desires for some object we become one with that object of desire. That moment that desire settles down, there is no ripple of that desire. That very moment the bliss expresses. And unintelligently we say, I am happy because I got what I wanted, what I desired. No, we are of the nature of bliss. In the same way, the pure self that I am is existing independently of the experiences of the three planes of consciousness. Whether it is the full moon of the waking state, half moon of the dream state, or new moon of the deep sleep state, in all the three states, I, the moon, is, and who knows this? The moon herself. So, the self is ever existing. Whether the waking, dream and sleep come and go, the self is not affected by it. And this is your experience. From childhood till today, waking, dream, deep sleep have come and gone every day. Do you feel you have come and gone every day? When you think of the waking, dream, deep sleep, then you say, yes, I was sleeping early in the morning, then I got up. But when you look at the total span, do you feel you have been ever absent? No. You have never been absent. You have ever been present. And there will never be a time when you will be absent. That's your nature. That's the truth about each one of us. Continuing, then what does he say? Uh, Whether it is the full moon of the waking state, where the mind is fully expressive, where it is half expressive in the dream state, and the just only in the seed form. The mind is in the moon. The mind, moon is also called the mind, or the possibility. Here we will not take it, because then he says the moon herself knows it. What is mind in essence? Mind is nothing but consciousness. In waking state, mind is fully conscious. In dream state, it is only subtle conscious. Gross consciousness is missing, so half moon. And in deep sleep, the moon is causal conscious, meaning what? All possibilities are there, but it is not expressing. In waking, it was fully expressing. In deep sleep, possibilities are there, but it is not expressing. It's not manifesting. And therefore, new moon. Not no moon, new moon. Because no moon means there is no mind. No, in deep sleep, mind is there, but unmanifest mind. Possibility of manifestation is there. So whether it is fully expressing, partly expressing, or possibility of expressing is there, it does not matter. The moon knows that it is ever complete. The consciousness knows that it is always complete. Whether the knowledge, if you want to say in that way, whether the consciousness is fully expressive in the waking, partly expressive in the dream, and in the, unexpressed in the deep sleep, consciousness has not died. Consciousness cannot die. You are talking about the experience. You are talking about that fully expressed, partly expressed. You are talking about the expression. You are talking about the rays. You are talking about the phenomena of expression. But the moon, whether it is expressing or not, it is always there. Similarly, the consciousness, the bliss, whether it is expressing or not, it is always there. These are the angles of approach which will quieten down our mind. Otherwise, pursuit of the world for happiness, there is no end to it. Probably we did that, that's why we are again in the human birth in this time. Again, and let's not make the same mistake again. Sort it out, man, sort it out. Think properly, think correctly, think with common sense. Not just the way the education systems make you think, not the way the gross is real. And when do we say gross is real? When seeing is believing. When we take this as our premise, then we stop being available to the other possibilities. First, this conviction, that I believe what the scriptures and the saints and sages are saying is true, then why my experience of life is contrary to their statements? Where is the error? Contemplate, think, inquire, deliberate, taking these thoughts, go line by line. Some of you got the texts. Go line by line and think and go deep into it. What are the repercussions if I don't understand this now? Only once we have to understand. Only once. Dig deep, dive deep into yourself. Any statement in this scripture you can take of Jnaneshwar Maharaj. See? But we are like that, who digs a well here, then, dig 1 feet, there is no water. Then go to another location, again dig again. Again 2 feet, no water. Again go to another location. Again dig for 2-3 feet, again no water. And you dig the entire ground, it's ready for sowing. But you will not get water. Why? You never dug deep enough in one place. If you had put all that energy in digging in the first place, deep enough, you would have hit water. But we are shallow in our inquiry. We are shallow in our thinking. Then how do you deeply think? Reflect and contemplate. Reflect and contemplate. See? In and through the total manifestation of the waking state or no manifestation as in deep state, I, the pure self alone is, we have already said that. If one tries to understand it by being the waker, it will only be a vain struggle. If you try to understand that the I, the pure self, is other than the waking and the dream and the deep sleep, and you want to take that position, you are understanding that it is other than the waking, dream and deep sleep, but you are not ready to give up the waking hood. You are not ready to give up the waking experience. You are not ready to give up the waking instruments, this body, breath, mind, intellect. Then it will never click. We have to be ready to go beyond the waking experience. Waking experience is only the gateway. It is not the answer. It's only the gateway.
Alert from calendar, Norfolk Island Agricultural Show Day, Norfolk Island.
Waking is only the doorway. It is not the ultimate. So for that, what you have to do? You have to give up your obsession with the waking body, with the waking experiences and the waking world. Are we ready for that? That each one of you has to decide. And you know how to do it. You put the waking world aside and dive into deep sleep. Every day you are doing it. You know how to put it aside. Then why it becomes a problem to put it aside when we are contemplating and be the self in meditation? Put it aside for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, whatever. If one tries to understand it by being the waker, it will only be a vain struggle, because waker, as much as waker cannot enter the dream state, dream world, nor the waker can get into the deep sleep world, waker has to vanish. He has to go out of existence in order for dream world to express. And now we are talking about that we are that one who is beyond the waker, dreamer and deep sleeper. Then you are conducting the inquiry in the waking state. You are the waker at this moment, but we have to let go of the waker also. Spiritual sadhana is not a path where there is effort and struggle. Who will put effort and struggle? The waker will put effort and struggle. How is the waker expressing? He is expressing as the seeker. Then is it wrong to be a seeker? No, it is not wrong. Put efforts. Come to a point where efforts lead to effortlessness. Vaikhari madhyama pashyanti para. Because we don't know how not to put efforts, then these exercises are given. Whether it is the exercise of Ashtanga Yoga, whether it is the Kundalini, whether it is the Kriya Yoga, whether it is the Bhakti Yoga, all this is not to realize, but it is to settle down the mind. Where the mind settles down, there the self reveals, the Paramatma reveals himself. Because he is always revealing it, revealed. Just like moon is always, whether you are able to perceive it or not, that's your problem. Similarly, Paramatma is always. Then what is stopping us? Our addiction to objectivity is stopping it. And with reference to the objects, we become a waker, a dreamer, a sleeper, a husband, a wife, a son. We have to drop all these references. And for that, we saw the chapter on the Vaikhari Madhyama Pashyanti Para. That's another exercise to move towards effortlessness, only because we have somewhere in our mind decided, become convinced that it is very difficult to not do anything. It is very difficult to be free of efforts. How can I come to be the self without doing anything? No, that means the scriptures are written, yoga is given, kundalini is given, so many sadhanas are given, and you are telling don't do anything. You are already that. नहीं, don't take me for a ride. अच्छा भाई, फिर करे लगे रहो. All those exercises, pathways are told only because one is not able to give up the efforts or go beyond efforts or accept that he is the one who is always, and efforts cannot take him there. And this is only because of the default setting from childhood till now, for many lives also, those who believe that we have put efforts. Everything in our life where we are today is because we have put efforts. So we keep using that data even in the spiritual pursuit, not realizing that the spirit is our essential nature. No pursuit is required for it. But for us, I am a spiritual seeker, I am doing spiritual sadhana. Then we get caught up in that. Then all the activity of the world is lower and all activity towards the spirit is higher. This is how Gita also says. But eventually you have to give up both and recognize that activity is a superimposition on the reality. Or either first option, activity is a superimposition on the reality, or activity is an expression of that reality. Meaning what? Activity is expression of that reality. That activity is pervaded by the reality but not affected by the activity. The reality is not affected. The wave is pervading the activity, coming and going of the waves, but the water is not affected by the waves. The gold is pervading the ornaments, But whether an ornament melts or is molded into a new ornament, gold remains the same. So who are you? You are the one in whom the activity of waking, waker, dreamer, sleeper, coming and going. You are the unchanging one. It is only when you identify with the form, with the body, that you start taking up a special position and create non-existing problems for yourselves. There is no problem. Because if problem is, then truth is not. There can be only one is. There can be only one satta. There can be only one existence. And what is that existence? Sat. That is the Parabrahma Paramatma. Here in this text it is the Paramashiva. But if you say obstacles are, misery is, unhappiness is, difficulties are, then Paramashiva also is and problems also is. How can there be two? This you have to think through and come to the correct conclusion that I am that who's pervading the waking dream and deep sleep, but unaffected by the waking dream and deep sleep experience. For I am the eternal witness. If the presence of the moon is to be known at noontime, there is no other way except to land on the moon. In the same way, the bliss cannot be understood by conceptualizing it, by making it an object of experience. Bliss cannot be made an object of experience. Enough talked about it. I hope the topic is, the explanation is clear. I don't have to deliberate on it more. Next example. Rupa nahi te lavanya, anga snuthi te tarunya, kriya na phute te punya, kaise ase. Can there be beauty without form, youthfulness without a grown-up body, and merit without meritorious acts? Can there ever be beauty without a form? No, because the substratum of beauty is the body. Beauty is an adjective. Beauty is of something. Something is beautiful. So here it says that because the substratum of beauty is the body, similarly experience of joy or sorrow is possible only because it is already existing. If it is not to be created. Can there be youthfulness without a youthful vigorous body and limbs? Similarly, is it possible to acquire merit without meritorious acts? Now don't take these sentences to be, oh, there can be no merit without meritorious acts, so I must do meritorious acts. That is not the point here. The point here is, without meritorious acts, can you gain merit? No. So, when we are experiencing joys and sorrows in the mind, what is their cause? What is that because of which joys and sorrows are experienced in the mind? Merit is accrued only because of meritorious act. Joys and sorrows come about because of what? Because of whom? What is their essence? Bring your attention to that. In the same way, the bliss that we are is already existing, and without it, no other experience is possible. Remember, again I am bringing your attention to it. Existence and consciousness. When we are conscious of our own continuous existence. When we are conscious of our own unbroken existence, not what is broken existence? Waker, dreamer, sleeper is the broken existence. Waker appears for some time, then vanishes. Then dreamer appears for some time, then vanishes. Then sleeper comes for some time and vanishes. Who are you? You are the continuous one. You have never come and gone. So when we consciously means what? Initially you will use the thought, you will put efforts to contemplate, but it must lead to. When consciousness and existence become one, then there is no thought required. When we become conscious of our ever present existence, then consciousness is equal to being. When this happens, the result, that which was hidden within the womb of those two, which are one only, what is that? The bliss. The bliss sprouts forth. Or I can't even use the word bliss. Bliss becomes revealed. The bliss becomes revealed. Just like husband gets revealed when the man comes in front of the woman. Similarly, when consciousness and existence are facing face to face, without a doubt that we are one and the same. Good example. Then bliss comes forth. And this bliss is expressing as the entire world. This bliss is the entire mind. This bliss is pervading all the duality. When we use the word bliss is pervading the entire duality, it does not mean that duality is real. When we say the water is pervading all the waves, wave is not real, there is only water. So contemplate in this manner subjectively that I am of the nature of conscious existence, I am ever present. The resultant will be a blissful expression in and through any activity. Your attention will not be on the activity, your attention will be on your continuous existence. See? That is why all the Mahatmas are in masti all the time. Why? They are ever conscious of their continuous existence. They are not concentrating and focusing upon the world. But people, they see the Mahatma as a body living in this world. Why? Because they are thinking they are the body, so they think Mahatma is also the body. But what does Mahatma think? A realized master think? He doesn't think. He knows that he is all that there is. Ekameva Dvitiya. I am Satchidananda Swarup. All this entire expanse of experience is nothing but me only. So he is not attached to this body or attached to that person or attached to waking only or to sleep only, nothing like that. And this we come to see in different Mahatmas in different ways. When a dog eats food, the Mahatma feels he is satisfied. And so on. Another example is taken. Zay manacha ankura nupaze te thile ni makara dhwaje tochi hanamaze tarichi ghade. Before the sprout of mind is born, how can there be the unrest on account of lust which is unmanifest in the mind. Another thing to contemplate. The biggest challenge in our life at the empirical level is lust. Lust is uncontrollable desire. This lust is the feeling that without it, oh, क्या हो जाएगा? Unless the sprout of the mind is that is manifested, the inherent latent desire will never come out. Unless the sprout of the mind is born, the inherent latent desire will never come out. So unless and until mind does not get manifested, how can the desires which are in the mind, in the depths of the mind, how will they come out? Unless and until Brahmaji does not manifest, how can creation manifest? Same way you can put it. Unless and until Brahmaji, the creator, does not manifest from Narayana, from the navel of Narayana, how can he desire a creation? How can he create a creation? See? So, can you have a creation without Brahmaji? Not possible. So, can you have a desire without mind? Not possible. Now we have to find out what is the status of the mind. We are only caught up in desires. But where are the desires expressing? In the mind. So here he is saying, unless the sprout of the mind is born, unless the mind becomes manifest, just like in deep sleep it is unmanifest, there are no desires in the deep sleep. The desire, when it becomes manifest, gross manifest or subtle manifest, waking or dream, the mind, unmanifest mind, when it becomes gross manifest or subtle manifest, then the desires start expressing. Otherwise they don't. In deep sleep they don't. The latent desire will never come out. If it is unmanifest, they will never come out. The mind inherently contains all the good or bad thoughts in seed form, and it is these dormant desires that manifest. So, the mind in its womb is having a data bank of good and bad deeds, good and bad thoughts, good desires and bad desires. Only that can come out which is already there. How can something that is not there, then how can that come out? Therefore, when scriptures say there is nothing new in this creation, it is so true. Because whatever is taking place is the seed, it is already there in the seed form in the subconscious. It is all, or in other words, in the mind, in the unmanifest form. The right environment was not there, that's why it was not expressing. Otherwise you think the planes, the cars and the refrigerators and the heaters, 200 years ago nobody had heard of them, which means they were absent. No, they were unmanifest. They are unmanifest. Right environment came, it became manifest. In you also, in each one of us, the possibility of walking the spiritual path, it must be lurking somewhere within the mind, isn't it? Understanding the scriptures, having interest in the scriptures, doing the Parayana of Hanuman Chalisa or Sundarkand, listening to the Upanishadic satsang. And how many years ago did you know that there is something called Upanishads and the scriptures? Probably when you were young. How many years ago did you know when you were in Australia? Probably from the moment you arrived in Australia, you knew satsang was going on. But when did you get exposed to it? When did you start consciously interacting with it? When did you start contemplating and reflecting on it? Did you start from the very beginning? Only when the environment was right. Because you had other issues in your mind which you needed to resolve before. So then where was this urge, this desire to study the scriptures, to contemplate? It was already there, but it was not manifest. If you had given it attention there, it would have become manifest. But that time we gave attention and importance to other things, so that went into the background. So exactly the same way, the mind inherently within its womb contains all the good and bad thoughts in the seed form. Where is the entire tree? It's in a seed. What is a tree? The trunk, the roots, the branches, the leaves, the flowers, the fruits. How many? One trunk, many branches, infinite number of leaves, flowers and fruits, because it will keep giving. Every year in the autumn the leaves will fall, then new leaves will come. How many leaves? Oh my God, there is no end to it. All that possibility of that tree with its whole lifespan and how many leaves and how many flowers and how many fruits, all that was inherent in the seed. Same way, exactly the same way. All the good and bad thoughts are inherent in the mind in the seed form. They are just waiting to be sprouted at the right time. They are biding their time. Just like all the bacteria are inside our body, in the right environment which is conducive to them, they come. Suddenly the skin rash comes out, or just now someone I know, they got shingles. Right environment came, shingle came out. Stress or jaundice or chicken pox or whatever each one has, gets at the body level or mental level, it has not come from outside. All the bacteria is within, only waiting to manifest itself in the right environment. And where is the environment? This is another question. Where is the entire environment? It is also within the mind only. It is not outside. Oh, this is difficult to comprehend. Then don't comprehend. Just accept it. They rise from nowhere else. In the same way, from I, the pure consciousness, the pure bliss, which is non-dual existence alone, all the multiplicity springs forth. What I told you before, when we become conscious of our continuous existence, when the I becomes aware of I without a thought, when I becomes aware of I, there cannot be any thought. When I looks at the eye, it cannot think, it cannot see itself. But you know the eye is there. Now go to the subject eye. When eye becomes aware of its own continuous existence, not as a waker, dreamer, or sleeper, but the continuous one, the result is the bliss. And this bliss is the entire world. Then is the world a problem? No. Is the world something to be running after? No. Then why am I running after girls? Why am I running after boys? Why am I running after food? Why am I running after experiences? You are Brahmarpanam Brahmavi. You are running after yourself only. We are not saying stop running. We are saying redefine it. The moment you redefine, you are running after yourself. You are in. Then it becomes a Leela. Brahman playing with himself. Water playing with itself is wave. Can you stop the waves? No. Can you stop activity of can you stop thinking? No. Can you stop activity? No. Can you stop seeing, hearing, touching, feeling, tasting? No. Can you stop waking, dream, deep sleep? No. You cannot stop anything. Can you stop past and future at the empirical level? No. Then what is spiritual sadhana? Spiritual sadhana is through this particular verse or last few verses that we are seeing here, our understanding should be this is all the self alone. Then you are not against or for all these. You are the mere witness of all these. Allah. In the same way, from I, the pure consciousness, the pure bliss, because I is conscious, blissful existence, which is non-dual existence, it is one without a second, all the multiplicity springs forth. So it is this bliss which expresses as the multiplicity. So when we say bliss expresses as the multiplicity, now come back to yourself. Where do you see the multiplicity? Where do you experience the multiplicity? In the mind. And where does the multiplicity come? What is its source? Bliss. Do you consider your mind, even as an individual, do you take your mind to be an expression of bliss? Or you take your mind to be a problem, which is schizophrenic. Sometimes he is happy, sometimes he is sad, sometimes he is emotional, sometimes he is this. Sometimes he is waking, sometimes he is dreaming, sometimes he is sleeping. Bekoof hai ye mind. No, it is expression of bliss. For that we have to come deeply, directly come to know that we are all that there is. For that थोड़ा पापड़ बेलने पड़ेंगे उसके लिए. Reflect. Where are we going wrong in our approach? And if we are understanding why it is not clicking, it's not clicking because we are not convinced. We are not convinced because there is some lack of faith somewhere. There is lack of faith because we have faith in the changing more than the faith in that which is permanent. See, all connected. So reorient yourself. This cannot happen by discussion. This cannot happen by reading. This can happen only inside you. Uddharet atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet. Raise yourself by yourself, in yourself, for yourself. See? The mind is one, but the thoughts and desires are many. Mind is one, thoughts and desires are many. So, where is all multiplicity we told you? In the mind. Is there one mind or many mind? How many minds do you have? Oh, I have got a waking mind and a dream mind and a deep sleep and unmanifest mind. It's all your mind only. If I take it one step further, there are no many minds. It's not my mind and your mind and her mind and her mind. And how many people are listening? Oh, that many different minds? No. Not even how many are listening? Not even all the people in this world. 8 billion people, 8 billion people, 8 billion minds. No. There is only one mind. Just like it is one gold appearing as many ornaments, just like it is one water appearing as many waves, it is one mud appearing as many pots, it is one mind which is appearing as the many. This can click only when you take that bliss is manifesting as the mind. Only when our attention is on the self, then this will click. Otherwise, it will not. So, one side is that you are trying to understand. Now, direct experience. When? Here and now, right now. That you are that conscious, blissful, continuous existence. The mind is one, but the thought and desires are many. So also I, the pure consciousness, is supporting all the experiences of every being in the past and the future, but itself is one without a second. Now you know, when we say you are aware, conscious, knowledgeable of, from childhood till today, waking, dream and deep sleep have come and gone, isn't it? When you listen to this statement, you are neither a waker, you are neither a dreamer, neither you are a sleeper. The moment you listen to it and you are nodding, it is not the waker who is nodding. Because suddenly these words triggered the disposition, the knowledge which was inherent within you, that you are the eternal one, you are the continuous one, you are other than the waker, dreamer and deep sleeper. Now that realization has to manifest. That is the phenomena. And right now you are in the waking state, and then the waking head nods. It has to express somewhere. So when it says here, so also I, the pure consciousness, is supporting all the experiences of every being. This is far from truth if we consider we are the body. You can never come to understand this. If you keep insisting I am the waker and I am the waking body, this statement, it becomes only sounds good. But what it is, what is its impact, what is its depth, what is it in the essence, it is you. You will never come to know that. You have to give up the obsession with the waking. See? And that is why probably in the olden times people used to move away from home, because you stay in the house, the child comes, mummy, mummy, daddy, daddy, suddenly you are pulled into the waking state. They'll bring out the album from the past, again you are pulled into the waking state, into the individuality. So they will spend, like Nisargadatta Maharaj, for 2 years he locked himself up in the room. Only 2 years. Only 2 years. Did not allow anything to disturb his contemplation. I am that. Because the teacher told him, you are that. Ramana Maharshi moved away from home, went to the temple, left the temple, went to the cave. There also people didn't leave him, or some of the self-proclaimed devotees. But in the end, but he had to move away from everything. Sometimes it helps. Very rare are people. Ilhadi Mahashaya, he used to be with the family, with the kids, with the wife, but he used to have his time with himself throughout the night. The moment wife goes to sleep, he used to get up and sit down. Whole night he will be meditating, not sleep. Even Satya Sai Baba, those who have lived with him or they used to serve him, they have hardly, and even Ammachi, I talk to people here, they have hardly seen her eating. They have hardly seen Satya Sai Baba eating. Only 1 or 2 pieces he will take, sometimes that also not. And if they say, oh, he rests, oh, maybe 2-3 hours. Ammachi rests only 2-3 hours at night. But for us, our 7 hours sleep, the doctors say, the research, nowadays all doctors and every Tom, Dick and Harry, the research says, whose research? Some idiot who has copy-pasted all the researches and made his own research without experimenting on it. Research is always changing. You apply it on yourself and you find out for your own. Don't depend on anyone else. Huh? So I, the pure consciousness, is supporting all the experiences of every being. Just like the mind in the dream is supporting the entire experience of the dream world, the mind alone is supporting the minds of every being in the dream. So is true in the waking also. So, Swamiji, you are in our mind. Yes. Then we manifested you. Yes. एक हिंदी गाना है ना, तू मुझ में है मैं तुझ में हूँ. पूरा गाना याद नहीं है मेरे को. Another way to put it is one in all in one. And this is our experience in the dream. And we are not ready to accept it in the waking. Suffer then, और क्या कर सकते हैं? कर क्या सकते हैं? Until unless I can't make you accept it, you are listening, you have to find ways and find the shraddha, the conviction to accept it. You have to change your angle of approach. You have to give up your obsessions with the waking, and in the waking be focused on the one who is beyond waking, dream and deep sleep, but expressing in and through the waking, dream and deep sleep, not only ours but everyone's. Arey baapre, this is too much, man. Huh? If you think it is too much, it is too much. If you think if you think it is too much, why you are thinking? Because you are thinking as an individual. But when I give you the example, the mind alone is space, air, wire, water, earth, plants, animals, mountains, rivers, movement, wind, the directions, the sun, the moon, the bodies, the blood running through all the bodies, the thoughts in every person, the breath of every person, the birth and death of every person in the dream. You say, yeah. There's no doubt there. Immediately you say yes. There's no lag. Then why that lag when it comes to waking? Now find out where the error is in your contemplation. What is that which is stopping you from accepting this entire world is nothing but the mind? Is nothing but the I. I alone is expressing as bliss, that bliss alone is expressing as mind, and mind in its womb has the seed of the entire world. Same idea is presented in our Puranas. That self, the total self, is called Narayana. Whether with form or without form, doesn't matter. Out of him appeared Brahmaji. And Brahmaji is the one who manifests the creation, isn't it? So where are Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh? They are inherent within they are, either we say inherent, or they are expressions of the one alone. That one Narayana alone is expressing as Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh and all the gods and the gross world. Same is true here also. For this, for contemplation of this in your own being, it requires a quiet period where your mind is not disturbed by past or future, your mind is not disturbed by the heat and cold, mind is not disturbed by hunger or thirst, mind is not disturbed by gain and loss, mind is not disturbed by victory and defeat. This is all the words of Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? So you need to cultivate a mind first. Now this cultivation of this mind is not possible in deep sleep. It is not possible in dream. So you pursue this cultivation of the mind in the waking. And it has to become calm, peaceful, tranquil. For that, do whatever exercise that is helpful to bring that mind about. During the day, live in such a manner, as we have told again and again, do not disturb the world by your thought, word and deed, nor get disturbed by the thought, word and deeds of other people. Oh, it is very difficult. Okay, chant the mantra in and through the day. Not when you feel like. Make a commitment, 24/7 I will chant the mantra. Yesterday my friend called me. He came back from America. So he's in quarantine in Melbourne in the hotel. He said, "अरे यार, 14 days, 10 days or 14 days he has to, till 21st he is locked up." And the room is only 5 by 2.5. And he is stuck in there. He said, "क्या करूँ, समझ नहीं आ रहा." So, talk to me almost for 2 hours. I said, "Every day 2 hours I can't give you, man." And suddenly, I didn't say that to him, but we were just talking. I said, "Yeah, this is too much. Last 2 days I have been only thinking of how to get out of it. I asked them, give me a bigger room, I am ready to pay. I asked them that I want Indian food, I want thali with 3 sabjis and a dal and a rice and a chapati. At least then I'll be okay." ऐसे इसका एंड कहाँ है? कोई एंड ही नहीं है इसका. उस जब ये मिल जाएगा तो तू you will think of something else to want. Then I said, "Hey, when in your life you got 10 days where you are only with yourself, from the time you have been born till today, till you entered this hotel, did you ever get 10 days only for yourself, nobody to disturb?" He says, "No." I said, "Then take it as an opportunity." What should I do? मैंने कहा, observe your breath. सरदार है. I said, observe your breath. 10 दिन के लिए let go of everything. Put your phone off. दिन में एक बार ऑन करके हाँ हाँ हेलो हेलो बोल के फिर ऑफ कर दो. But make an attempt. Be aware that you are aware of your breath 24/7. Dive deep. See how quick, what a deep, tranquil experience you will get. So I hope he didn't call me yesterday, means he is doing it. See, but we don't, because we are so lost in wanting, we forget what life is presenting us. People are complaining about COVID, we are taking it as a blessing. And then he is very intelligent and he said, यार ये तो बहुत बढ़िया बात कही तूने कि 10 दिन I will never get again 10 days for myself. मैंने कहा, then stop being a problem to yourself. तू ऐसे कर, and मैं तो यहीं पे हूँ, 1 phone call away. Because once you get out of here, you will be repeating this story 100 times to everyone who comes across to you. So access the Parminder who is other than, who is the husband, who is the brother, who is the son, who is the father, who is the pharmacist, who is this, who is the owner of these properties. Give yourself an opportunity. Nature has given you the opportunity to access the true you. Satsang is an opportunity where we become available to ourselves. But are we? Or are we still lost in objectivity? Again and again contemplating on this consciousness that I am the one manifesting from every point in creation. How beautiful Swamiji is writing. These are words of the scriptures only. Contemplating that I am the one manifesting from every point in creation. I am the one consciousness which is manifesting in every point of creation. For every circle, there is a center, right? For every circle, this is a circle, this is the center. If there is a circle here, this is the center. If this is a circle here, there is the center. Correct? Why this is the center? Because this center is equidistant from the perimeter. Correct? The distance from the center to the edges of the circle are equal. That's why that point is called the center. Are you in a circle, or are you in a circle without perimeter? Are you in a universe which has got no periphery? Ask yourself. Are you living in a universe which has got no boundaries? Yes or no? I'm asking. Are you living in a universe with boundaries or without boundaries? It's not a trick question.
Without boundaries, Swamiji.
Ah. If we have accepted ourselves as wife, I have created a boundary of husband. If I accepted as a daughter, I created a boundary of mother. If I accepted myself a waker, I have created the boundary of the waking world. As a dreamer, boundary is the periphery is the dream world. But what is your experience when you look at this universe, even now in the gross world, when you are looking, you are in this universe. Where is the boundary? Can you see the boundary? All boundaries are imaginary. That I am this body, that this is my house, that I am mother of these kids, that these are my relationships, that I am so wealthy. All these boundaries are self-created. You are imagining them. Because as a physical body, you may be this much. As a mental body, you are much more. Every night you take new body in dream. Where's the question that I'm only this body? Suddenly that idea breaks away, breaks down. So when you look at this physical universe, where is the boundary? There is no boundary. Space is infinite. It has got no edges. When there is no perimeter of space, when there is no perimeter of the space, where is the center? Where is the center? Everywhere. When there is no boundary or perimeter, or these are the only two words, then where is the center? Center is everywhere. When the wave is thinking of itself, it has a boundary of its shape. But when it is thinking of water, no boundary. Where is water? Everywhere. Where are you? Everywhere. You are pervading through the entire creation, yet independent of the creation. I am the one manifesting from every point in creation is called Bhavanopaya, Bhavana Upaya. Practice is, Upaya means practice, Bhavana means feeling. Inculcate this feeling again and again. There is no conclusion. You are not looking for a conclusion. You are not looking for an experience. But you are contemplating. I am expressing through my child also. I am expressing through my husband also. I am expressing through the mother also. I am expressing through the friends also. I am expressing through the entire. Like there is a sadhana in which they say that if you keep looking back into your life, not initially what I did yesterday, you will start from what I did today. Oh, I got up in the morning at 5 o'clock. 2 minutes after 5, I got out of the bed because I checked the time. Straight away, I went and brushed the teeth, then went to toilet, then took shower, then did some prayers, then came and sat down. Then I talked on the waited. Then I came to the computer. And whatever, however it reveals, step by step, everything will reveal itself. Initially, there will be gaps. When you keep practicing, you will forget less and less. You will remember more and more. Every tiny detail you will remember. Then you change the rules. Instead of from morning till now, you start going back from now to the morning. So I am speaking right now. Then what I started the satsang at 8:30, 8:31. Before that, I was rinsing my mouth. Before that, I was eating, taking last sip of my coffee. Before that, I was eating a toast with honey. Before that, I was mixing the coffee in the cup. Before that, I poured the milk and the water into the cup. Before that, I heated the milk. Before that, I walked down the steps. Before that, I finished meditation. You're going backwards. And as you effortlessly, don't stress, naturally, if you keep practicing it, everything will become so crystal clear. Your memory will be enhanced. But your goal is not to remember. Your goal is, as you are digressing into the past and remembering, suddenly, without going, if you do 1, 2, 3, 4 days and you become adept at it, suddenly your past lives will become available to you. Without going to the point of birth. Wherever your attention goes, that day will become revealed. Wherever you go, that particular incident of the past will be like a movie in front of your eyes. See? This is bhavana. Is there anything called past? No, it's dead and gone. It's only a figment of imagination of your mind. You have created the memories of the past because of unhealthy interaction with it. And that which is not there, you are trying to remember. How? By bhavana. If you can do that, Mahatmas can do that, why don't you do it? I am the one who is expressing at every point in creation. Again, a bhavana, a feeling. You do a little bit, feel at one moment, with the table, with the computer, with the person, with the food, with the environment. You do practice this for a few days and your periphery will keep increasing, where you feel identified with everything. Suddenly it will grow exponentially and blast into without any periphery. And you will be one with everything. This is what the gopis used to feel. In the trees they used to see Krishna, in the calves they used to see Krishna, in the parents they used to see Krishna. This is what Brahmaji experienced when he came back from Brahmalok, because he saw another Brahmaji was sitting there. When he came down, he saw Krishna in every leaf, in every plant, in every grain of sand. And his vision became so acute and focused that he saw Krishna in every atom of the universe. This is, I am the one manifesting from every point in creation. So who is Krishna? He is the soul of Brahmaji also. Brahmaji is because of Krishna, not Krishna is because of Brahmaji. Krishna knows that, Brahmaji doesn't know that. That's why he tested him out. So take the correct position in life. Life is not outside of you. Life is not to be lived, experienced. You are life, and life is expressing through you joyfully, blissfully. I alone am life. See, I am the one manifesting from every point in creation is called Bhavana Upaya in Pratyabhijna Shastra, in the Shaivagama, and is a very potent method in spiritual sadhana. This you cannot discuss. You have to sit by yourself and find your own ways. Not limited identification. If you want to identify, unlimited. If you want to withdraw, not little bit withdraw, completely withdraw. But we do, neither we completely withdraw, neither we completely identify. We are hanging in the middle. The one who hangs in the middle is called ego, the ghost. The story is told of an ill-led disciple who was told by the Guru, I have installed Lord Dattatreya on your head. See that you do not put him down at any time except when you go to sleep, go to the toilet. Take great care of him. The disciple took that instruction with such an implicit faith that he even used to bend down when he crossed a threshold, lest he should knock the Lord on the head. To him the Lord was a living one, not a mere thought. If this bhavana upaya is practiced with total faith, then alone will the consciousness which was separated from the altar of one's faith will be totally united with it, and the experience of the self will become evident. So what is the point here? Bhavana upaya, I have already told you, the consciousness which was separated from the altar of one's faith. So why we are not experiencing it? Because of lack of faith. We want an experience. We want something to, because we experience the world, we want to experience the self also. We want to experience the divinity also. That will never happen. And we'll keep knocking on many doors, many scriptures, many Mahatmas, and die miserably. It will never happen. Because this can never get completion. Because you are complete. Seeking completion. बेवकूफ़ी है. Stupidity. See? Will be totally united with it, and the experience of the self will become evident. Inherent potentiality for manifestation and absence of manifestation is one's essential nature. But manifestation or non-manifestation makes no difference so far as I is concerned. So again the same point is being made, I have covered it already, that I is eternal, not I as a thought, not I in the mind, I as you are. It alone is manifesting and unmanifesting, but because manifestation and unmanifestation is taking place, I doesn't become less or more. I remains ever the same, and that is your natural state. That is your Sahaj Bhav. Manifestation in the form of experience, experiencer, experienced, or absence of the Triputi are both supported by the I. the inherent supporter of the total field of experience. Hmm? Where is the Triputi expressing? Where is the Triputi expressing? In the mind. The mind bifurcates. What is mind in essence? Consciousness or bliss, expression of bliss. What are the Vibgaric color? The 7 colors of the rainbow? Nothing but one light, appearing as 7. What are waves? Many waves, but essentially only one water. Many ornaments, essentially, sorry, time ho gaya, but one gold. Similarly, consciousness is one, as if appearing as the mind. And what is mind? Nothing but the subject, object, and the instrument of knowledge. So self alone has appeared as through its potentiality expressed as experiencer, experienced and experiencing. Good example, waker, waking world and waking experience, dreamer, dream world and dream experience. And absence of the three is called the deep sleep. Who knows it? That's the one. That you are. We'll contemplate on this more next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnahat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.